I built a real-life Ninjago elemental blade. And I even put together Kai's kimono suit and did some awesome ninja action. After I built all the golden weapons and the mega weapon, I think it's time to make some of the other Ninjago weapons and characters. First up is Kai's elemental blade. I always thought the Sword of Fire was really cool, and making that and my Kai ninja suit last year was one of my favorite projects. But the one blade that is cooler than the Sword of Fire must be the elemental blade, with the whole sword being this really cool crystal shape. So let's make Kai's elemental blade, and while we're at it I think we should put together his kimono suit as well. To start with the elemental blade I need a 3D model. That is an easy fix though. I just copy pasted the handle from my Nunchucks of Lightning model and then drew the outline of the elemental blade. And with that we can start printing. Whoops, wrong printer.
Oops.
For this project I decided to not 3D print the blade, but instead cut it out of some acrylic glass to make the blade transparent, which will just look awesome.
Cool!
So with outlines printed out, I cut out and taped them together so I can sketch out the outline onto the acrylic glass. But first I need to put on a bunch of masking tape so I can draw out the outline. With all the sharp corners this might be a bit tricky to cut, so hopefully it turns out good. But now it's time to cut out this thing. After carefully cutting out the blade, I decided to draw and cut out another piece of the blade.
Fine, have it your way.
Because last time I made a sword of acrylic glass, it was a bit unstable.
Well, that's just the prototype.
With the two pieces cut out, I took off the masking tape and the plastic on top, which was actually really satisfying. And with that, I think it's time to 3D print the handle. So I cut the 3D model into a few parts and made space for a flashlight so that the blade can light up once I put it all together. But now it's time to start printing. If you want to print your own elemental blade, you can get the 3D model with the link up in the corner. It really helps support the channel and all the cool projects I'm working on. And thank you a lot for buying all my other 3D models. With that printed, I just removed some of the supports before it's time to sand. After a few hours of sanding, I first got some popsicle sticks that I cut to length so that I can help hold together the parts once I glue in the blade. Then, with all those cut, I put on some filler to smooth out the parts even more to make sure I get a super smooth surface for the gold paint.
Order up!
While the filler is drying, I could sand all the edges of the blade pieces to make sure I don't cut myself on any of the sharp edges, and also give the glass some scratches to make it look a bit more like a crystal. With all the edges sanded, I could glue the two blade parts together, which will hopefully make it a lot more stable than just one layer of glass. By now the filler had dried, so I sanded every little detail on the handle once again before I could glue all the parts together. The filler really helped make the parts super smooth, and with a bit more sanding they turned out great.
Did you just say better than this?
With it sanded, I could get all the parts and some super glue to put it all together. First I glued the blade in place with some hot glue. I had modeled the 3D model so that the blade should fit perfectly inside the handle, and it actually snapped right in place where it should, which was really nice. So now I could glue in all the popsicle sticks and add a ton of super glue before adding the other side of the handle. With everything glued together, I just tested to see if the two layers of glass really helped the stability of the blade. and it was so much better than my Darksaber. It doesn't bend when you hold it sideways, and it holds together really well. Before I got to painting though, I put on one last layer of filler to smooth out the places where I glued the parts together. And after one final go with some sanding, it's time to paint this thing. So I wrapped up the blade with some paper and tape and got to painting. First I sprayed the whole thing with primer before getting the gold paint, of course. Well, you already know this process after I've done it on all the golden weapons and the mega weapon. And once the parts had dried, it was time to finally paint the blade itself. So I unwrapped the blade and got some new red and yellow glass paints I bought for this project. These paints are somewhat transparent, which will make the blade look super cool and accurate to the TV show. And now I just have to get it to look as close as possible to the TV show, and try to really fade the colors from red at the base to yellow at the tip of the blade. I painted the bottom of the blade red and started to fade out the red as I moved up the blade, where I then continued with yellow to try and blend the colors together. Once I had painted the blade, I got some almost neon orange paint to paint in the dragon eye and the circle on the handle. To give those some more style, I first painted them with the orange paint before adding a dot of red in the middle. And after all that had dried, I painted the other side of the blade, of course. To add some more details, I mixed together some other red and yellow paints to add some highlights to the edges of the blade. With it painted, I just had to wait for it to dry before putting it all together. Now to finish up the blade, I got a flashlight and some light filters to make the light from the flashlight yellow. And with those two, I could put everything together and the elemental blade was complete. So with the blade done, I got some parts for Kai's kimono suit, and with that I think it's time for a cool montage.
You wanna go for a spin?
That was so cool. Getting to put on Kai's kimono suit and holding the elemental blade was just awesome. It's just one of the coolest moments in the show when they get their elemental blades at the Temple of Light before the final battle. And the elemental blade itself turned out super cool. The fade from the red to yellow and the transparent blade just looks so cool. Especially when you turn on the flashlight and it lights up. The next Ninjago product up is the Jade Blade, and then the Golden Ninja Suit. So be sure to subscribe because that will be so awesome. And here is another cool video you can check out in the meantime.